brand new CNN polls revealing how Americans feel about the president, the two political parties, and the newest Associate Justice of the Supreme Court, both during and after the battle to confirm Brett Kavanaugh, all coming less than 1 month from the midterm elections. CNN's political director, David Chalian, is at the magic wall with all the results. So, David, President Trump up, down, or about where he was?
No, he's up from where he was last month. Let's take a look at his overall approval rating, Jim. Brand new numbers from CNN conducted by SSRS out right now. 41% approve of how the president's handling his job. 52%, a majority of Americans, disapprove how he's handling a job. But like I said, he's up. Take a look at where he was in September. He was at 36. So the president's up 5 points now. That's good news. You want to be heading this way 4 weeks out from an election. But here's the problem. Take a look at how that 41% stacks up in history, Jim. It's at the bottom. Donald Trump is matching where Bill Clinton was in 1994 at 41%. He's at a historic low, and we all remember in 1994 when Bill Clinton was at this 41%, his party got wiped out in those midterm elections. This is a concern that Donald Trump is this low 4 weeks out from the election.
All right, Brett Kavanaugh also in these numbers. He's been sworn in, but how do Americans feel about whether he should have been confirmed?
Yeah, it's a good question. A majority of Americans do not think he should have been confirmed. 51% say no, he shouldn't have been confirmed. 41% said yes. And look at this over time. We asked this question back in August before his hearings, in September at the time of his initial hearings. You can see what the allegations from Blasey Ford and others did. They really increased the opposition across the country to Kavanaugh. We, of course, also asked Jim about the allegations themselves, whether Americans believe the women or believe Justice Kavanaugh. Take a look at that. 52% of Americans say on the accusations of sexual misconduct, they believe the women. Only 38% believe Kavanaugh. Take a look at the gender divide here when you break this out. Among women, 61%, more than 6 in 10 American women in this poll say they believe the women. Only 31% believe Kavanaugh. Men, much more evenly divided. And then, of course, we asked about how the parties in the Senate handled these allegations. First, we asked about whether or not having 2 of 9 justices facing sexual misconduct allegations getting to the court, is that a major problem? Nearly 6 in 10 Americans, 56% of Americans say that is a major problem, 16% minor problem. Only a quarter of Americans say that's not a problem at all. And now we also asked about how the Democrats and Republicans handled themselves during the Kavanaugh hearings. Jim, this did not wear well for either party. The majority of Americans disapproved. 55% disapproved for Republicans, 56% disapproved of how the Democrats handled themselves. This process did not wear well on anyone, not Justice Kavanaugh, not the Democrats and Republicans on the Hill, maybe save for President Trump, who I said his approval rating is on the way up.
David Chalian, thanks very much to the panel now.
Thanks.
Kristen, if I could start with you, really the one thing that folks seem to agree on in this poll is that both parties, in their view, did not handle these hearings well.
In a way, that finding doesn't surprise me. That was sort of a lot of the discussion that you would see after, especially that Thursday where you had the morning where you had Dr. Ford facing questions from a Senate panel where the Senate Republicans had brought in someone else to handle the questioning for her, followed by the sort of circus that unfolded around when then Judge Kavanaugh himself came in. So it doesn't surprise me that you would see a lot of voters in the middle kind of going, a plague o' both their houses. Mm-hmm. Another number that's from a poll from Quinnipiac that came out last week was, even though those numbers looked very similar to what the CNN poll shows, more said they believed Dr. Ford, more said that they opposed Kavanaugh's confirmation than not, 49% nonetheless said they felt Kavanaugh had been treated unfairly in the process. So those numbers in many ways don't surprise me. So David
Urban, you have a situation here where both parties are claiming that these hearings were a motivating factor. And you see some of that in the numbers for women, no question, on the Democratic side. But you also see it, as Kristen was saying, folks on the Republican side who think that Kavanaugh was treated unfairly. Who's going to benefit more in your view, or is it a push?
So look, at the end of this, I think these numbers show that nobody wins in this. Yeah. Right? It's the old adage, when you wrestle with a pig, you get dirty and the pig likes it, right? So this was a losing situation on both sides. And I think it could have been handled much better if Senator Feinstein and Senator Grassley would have, before this all got started, sat down and tried to get a hearing, tried to get, I had said this before, have an FBI investigation for a week and then you roll this out and, Dr. Ford could have been heard, it might not have been the biggest spectacle and you wouldn't have had all this acrimony that you're at now. So nobody benefits in the long run from this. The political gain here, I think, if you look at some of the individual House seats, I think it's going to be not great for some of these House members that you see the polling says that, women who are, extremely motivated or even more motivated. So some of the House seats are going to, tilt a little bit, maybe further to the D side. And I think some of the Senate seats may tilt a little further to the R side here. So there's no winners overall, but if you're looking to take political score, it's going to be a wash in the end, I think.
Angela, I've heard some smart people say, smarter than me, that anger is the real motivator. That in effect, in the end, the side that lost will be more motivated to vote in the midterms than the side that, that in a month's time, listen, the news cycle's pretty fast in this environment, but in a month's time, the Democrats, because they feel that they were wronged here, will be more motivated to come out and vote.
Yeah, and I think that that part of it for us, for the progressives among us, I think the real question has to be, and then what? So there were a number of people who were urging people to call their senators to make sure they voted appropriately. And then I'd say, and then what, right? So Susan Collins is someone that people were hoping would remember her womanhood before she remembered her party. That didn't work. So the question again is, and then what? So you have to ensure that when you turn out to vote, you're voting for people who share your same values. This process has resulted in folks overwhelmingly sending in money, contributions to Susan Collins' opponent who does not yet exist. Right? And so the question really becomes, how do you stay engaged and motivated in ways that hold your elected officials accountable, not just to get your vote, but to also support your positions on policy priorities, which I think is the longer term question that we have to answer writ large.
No opponent yet, but Susan Rice, at least. Floated as a name out there, and granted,
reneged on
a couple years from now.
But I would love to see that.
Jackie, the other headline number here is President Trump's approval rating going up 5 percentage points from 36, which was CNN's low in our previous poll in September, now up to 41, which is more in the band where his approval rating has lived almost without variation or too much variation in the last couple of years. But that's 5 points in a month, not insignificant.
Striking because of the economy. Last week, New York Times story aside, was a very, very good week for him, particularly on trade. A lot of the president's base had been, he has really made this promises kept campaign.
Wow,
a real,
what novel.
No. That has been part of his brand.
No, it's great. Go to every rally. You see it right now.
Right, exactly. And so I think that in and of itself, I think, is why. And the economy's great. It continues to be great. And it's striking that the president's numbers aren't higher because of the economy. And why his party, particularly House seats, are struggling because of the economy. And in terms of when you look at the numbers for Kavanaugh, I do wonder how that looks in red states, because I do think it's a much different picture in red states, particularly where these Democrats are running and they took some votes that they know they might end up paying for.
You mean worse for Democrats?
No, I think it might be worse for Democrats there. In some of these states where there are more Republicans than Democrats who head to the polls.
You've seen some evidence of that, for instance, in Heidkamp's race, Missouri, other swing races.
I think Heidkamp knew, what she was doing going in. Mm-hmm. I think, you really have to see what it's going to do with Joe Manchin. That'll be the kind of the litmus test, I think, whether Joe Manchin pays the price for this or not. To your point, to Angela's point, what now? Do people show up at the ballot box in West Virginia? Do Democrats take him to task for it? Or do people kind of look the other way and vote for him?
And do Republicans keep up this energy, right? Because people usually don't go to the ballot box to say thank you.
Well, not over judges,
they go
especially.
They're angry, and this they won, right? So can this anger and can this energy keep up for 4 weeks?
Well,
goodness knows what'll happen.
The president certainly hopes so. And that's been a consistent message.
That's going to happen.
Well, talking about impeaching Judge Kavanaugh in the next term if the Democrats take the House. But the president has said repeatedly at his rallies, he said, listen, look at this like I'm on the ballot, basically making it about himself. Winning strategy for him and the Republicans.
Well, it lines up with what we're seeing in a lot of polling. I mean, this is something that I've seen the Pew Research Center ask this every midterm. How much is your vote going to be about the candidate and the issues? Or how much is it going to be about showing a sign of support or opposition for the president? And this time around, you have an enormous number of Republicans, significant majority, who say their vote is going to be about support for Trump, not about the name of the person who's on the ballot, not about the issues that they may be talking about locally, that it's going to be about Trump. And the same thing for Democrats, that they're saying, look, whoever's on my ballot, may love him or hate him, I'm sending a message that this is about Trump, which is why, to the point about the House and the Senate being so different, that's bad for these House Republicans in districts Hillary Clinton won, and there are about 23 of them. Right. Democrats only need 24 seats to take the House. So scary stuff for Republicans in the House. But the Senate, that map is so red with so many Democrats who are having to thread that
running
needle.
in red state. I mean, conventional wisdom, granted, wrong all the time, but that you could have Democratic gains in the House and losses in the Senate as an outcome.
Yeah, that's what I think. I mean, we'll see. I mean, you guys are both Floridian, involved in the Florida race. I mean, those are the kind of the seats that are kind of on the razor's edge, and we'll see come Election Day what happens.
I think the other important piece of this is, even if they're traditionally red states, if there are people who are voting and they haven't been voting before, like in the Florida primary where there were 150,000 new voters just in the Democratic primary alone, that could very well tilt things. So you might have some happy Republicans who still get outvoted by
Well, you're seeing a big uptick in Democratic registration in the Georgia governor's race as well.